just wanted to understand your writing process. How do you exactly start that off, especially when you don't have a co-writer on projects where you started off alone? If you could just share about any movie as an example, taking any movie as an example, and share your process of how you break that down.
Look, let's take the process of Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na. I just think that in terms of getting something right, where it resonated with a lot of people, and there, because it was my film all the way, there was no Rajkumar Hirani as there was in Munnabhai MBBS. There was no
Right.
Vishal Bhardwaj. So the example that I can, and even Jhutai Sahi, my second film, the script was largely written by my wife. So Jaane Tu really becomes the best reflection of my personal process because there was no other co-writer involved. So
Sure.
Jaane Tu started with a very clear-cut idea that we hadn't seen a Hindi film hero on a horse for a long time, right? And I love the visual of a hero on a horse. Around the time that I started thinking this, I think the last time we had seen the hero on a horse was in a film called Joshile, which was an abandoned western by Shekhar Kapoor. Most people have not even heard of it, and then was completed by the producers. But there was this gorgeous black horse that Anil Kapoor was riding, and I think that was the last time we had really seen a horse, in a Hindi film. Then the process had stopped, and it became urban, right?
Hmm.
So the idea was that I really want to shoot a hero on a horse. Then came this crazy idea that I don't want to shoot a hero on a horse in a western setting or in a village or in the Bihar or in Chambal or something like that. I want to see my hero on a horse in Bombay. So that was all I knew to start with. And then I said, okay, if my hero's on a horse, where's he going? And I said, all right, he is going to stop the woman that he loves from leaving. And so the entire idea was based on my hero needs to go to the airport on a horse to stop the woman that he loves from leaving. So now you start asking a series of questions. Why is she leaving? What was their dynamic? Why the airport? Where is she flying? Why is he on a horse? How does make sense in today's day and age? So you go back. So to me, some of the finest writing that people do happens when not when they have a great beginning, because that is why you have this greatest trap of Hindi cinema. First half बहुत अच्छा था, second half कुछ इतना मजा नहीं आया. In case that I know it's an international festival, so literally that translates to we enjoyed the first half of the film, but the second half wasn't as convincing. And the very idea that you can approach a story and see it as two different parts of something is a bit bizarre. It has to be one story. The interval
Right.
just has to be one convenient point to take a break, right? So some of the best writing happens when you're very clear where the film is going and what's happening at the end. And then you sort of come back and start asking the right kind of questions. So that's what happened in Jaane Tu. That's what I knew at the end. And then it was just working back from a series. And the other thing that writers need to learn is your script is not going to be as good as the answers that you find for the questions that you ask. Your script is only going to be as good as the questions that you ask, right? The
Hmm.
single most important process is how good are your questions, not how good are your answers. The more imaginative your questions, the deeper your questions go, the more interesting your questions, the better your film is going to be, even with not such good answers. But if your questions aren't compelling or imaginative in the first place, even if you find brilliant answers, you're going to land up with an average script at best. So it's just a question of working backwards, and every answer that you get, you go one level deeper, right? This is something that you really the more you do, the better you will get at it. Which is just say, okay, so this is the answer that I've got. Uh, so okay, they were he she is leaving because her heart is broken. Why is her heart broken? Then you find the next answer. Then you move backwards and ask the next question, a next question. And so this process of questioning backwards is the most important thing that you're going to do till you have a set of answers that you're comfortable with. Then what you do is, okay, you know that this series of answers and questions have now created a structure that won't let you get lost. Then you put that aside. It's not going anywhere. You put it on the back burner and then just start free floating and just start putting down bullet points of things that you see, moments that strike you, like the scene from Godfather 3 that I was talking about. I want to see my hero cry. I want to see a moment where, someone is truly loving an animal versus the fakeness of pretending to love an animal because you think it's cute. And that's where the character of Meghna happens. And then the entire character of Meghna was actually inspired by an ex-girlfriend who shall, of course, remain unnamed because even she doesn't know it's based on her. It was adapted so cleverly. And the dynamic that I saw between her parents, while she actually was totally convinced that they are madly in love. And the one time I visited them, I just saw how strange it was. And therefore, that gave me this vision of somebody whose life seems to be perfect and then just realizing how brittle it all is. So there's this concept in physics or in chemistry called a supersaturated solution, right? At normal temperature, there's a certain amount of solute like sugar or salt that water can contain. But sometimes you heat it and artificially introduce more salt and sugar, which is what we call chashni or something like that. And then when you cool it, it actually now has more sugar than it's supposed to hold at that temperature. And it's thicker and more viscous. And that's called a supersaturated solution. And in a supersaturated solution, when you put in a seed crystal, a giant crystal forms around it. And that crystal, that supercrystal, is your film. So what you do is you supersaturate a solution with all the influences, all the ideas, all the influences, all the crazy stuff, all the interesting questions, answers, all the things that you know about the characters, their history, their dynamic. A lot of it might not make it to the film. That's all right. Just everything that you can think of, the more supersaturated your solution is, when that seed crystal, when you put that in, when the core idea, then you insert into that solution, a crystal forms. Then whatever's left behind, you leave it be. You got your crystal. That's the core of your film, right? Now that seed crystal is different things for different people. In some cases, it could be just knowing a really interesting friendship. In some cases, it's knowing the end. In some cases, it's just the fact that you want to build the film around a particular character. It's different things for different people, right?
Right.
So, for example, just digressing from Jaane tu ya Jaane na, there's a song in Munnabhai MBBS called Apun Jaisa Tapori Ko Kya Malum Sala Pyar Ki Chidiya Ka Naam Hai, right? And that was a college poem of mine. And when Rajkumar Hirani had read it, he had said, I love this. Whenever I make a film, this is going to be it's going to be a song. I'm like, Raju, it's not even written to a rhyme. It's a college poem. I used it to impress girls when I was sitting in the Xavier's canteen. How can you turn this into a song? But he was very sure. And to him, the character of Munna came from there. Right? So he had so much information, but he was always clear on Munna's language and what he would sound like, because of that was his seed crystal. That college poem of mine was something that he held on to and saw the value in that much more than I ever did. And that's how his entire supersaturated solution crystallized around a character called Munna and Circuit, right? So the seed crystal is different for different people. But as much information as you can put into that first solution that you create is how much will be available to you for that crystal to form. So, like I said, a process of working backwards from having a clarity on where your film is going. There's nothing more stupid than starting out a drive saying, I want to go to Pune. I know Pune is the place in Pune that I want to go to from Bombay is approximately 163 kilometers from my door. So why don't I drive 163 kilometers in some vague direction and hope that I land up where I want to land up, right? So what are the chances of that happening? Exactly the same chances as when you start off without knowing your end, start writing a screenplay, reach your interval point, don't know your end, and hoping that you will get somewhere that is satisfying when you reach the end. That's poker. That's not script writing. That's not a craft. So don't start writing the screenplay till you know where it's going. That's important. And before you start writing, have so much information available. Don't worry about what's going to make it to paper. Don't worry about what's going to make it to screen. Just know as much about your characters and about your world and about the dynamics between the people and the relationships between them and how you want to create the drama and how you want to see that drama come alive. Just have as much information available. So when you start writing, when that seed crystal gives you your core crystal and you start putting it down, you will not even have to think twice about what the next scene needs to be. All you will be able to focus on is how to tell it in the best way possible. You will not be struggling with what to tell. You cannot start writing while you're still struggling with what to tell. So my simple advice is spend all your time figuring out what to tell before you start the process of screenplay, which is how to tell it. That's my most important advice.